Good afternoon, everyone. Today is day 207 since I took delivery of my Focus RS, and it's day 10 of me being without it since it went back to the dealer because of my engine failure. So I've got an update on the engine failure today and what's happening, and also a theory on why the engines are failing, whether Ford are actually going to be able to fix it, because I'm not convinced. As for my car, currently I've spoken to the dealership a couple of times over the course of the last week. The planned surgery, engine removal, is in 5 days' time. The delivery of the new engine is the day after that, and apparently I'm meant to be collecting it then, getting it back from them a couple of working days after that. So we'll see if Ford actually do deliver the engine on time. I've heard from a few people that have also had engines replaced that the delivery dates have slipped. So we'll find out in a week. It can't happen soon enough though. I am so bored of this Cougar, or Escape as it's called across the pond. I'm really missing my RS. This thing, it's all right, gets down the road okay, but it just doesn't excite, and it has a comical throttle response. You can get your foot to the floor just like that, and it makes no difference at all to what the car's doing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into my car and experiencing a car that you can actually connect with. Back to my RS. There's a lot of uncertainty out there online, on forums, on YouTube, about what's actually happening, what's causing the engines to fail. And there are a lot of theories put forward as to what Ford need to do to fix it. So with Ford replacing the engine in my car, I've told them I'd like some answers to some questions, and the questions are basically, why did it fail? What caused the failure? And what's different about my new engine that means it's not going to fail again? I have heard that more than a few people have had second engines that they've had fitted fail again. So I'm not going to be too happy if my engine goes again in another 6 months and another 8,000 miles, which, unless they can tell me what's failed, why it failed and what's changed, I'm not going to be convinced that they're giving me a solution to the problem. I hope I do get answers to those questions. It's not unreasonable of me to ask that and expect answers, I don't think. Here in the UK, there is pretty significant consumer protection if you have anything that fails within 6 months of you buying it, and my car failed pretty much bang on the 6 months from when I took delivery. I want my car back, I want my car fixed, and most importantly, I want it to have an engine fitted that doesn't have a drink problem. On to why it's failed and what's causing these failures. Now, there is a lot of talk online about the head gaskets failing. Now, I don't actually think the head gaskets themselves are failing. I don't think there's a massive problem with the head gaskets. And here's why. Twice recently, I've taken my Focus RS to Surrey Rolling Road for a power run. The first time was before I had the problem. I check my coolant, I check under the bonnet every single week, and I know that the first time I took it there, I didn't have a problem. There was nothing wrong with my car whatsoever. So it ran and I got a graph. Then the coolant started dropping. I was starting to hear the misfire on startup, and I took it back there again. Ran it again, and I got another graph. Now, if you look at the two graphs here, I'm overlaying them so that you can see how the two curves appear on top of each other. They're identical, absolutely identical. Another reason I don't think the head gasket is failing is that my MPG didn't change. Now, those that may have followed my videos in the past know that I obsessively log what happens with my car, what I spend on it, what the MPG is, and you can see from the graph here that my MPG, yeah, it varies from tank to tank, but there wasn't a noticeable drop-off in MPG where the engine was running inefficiently because the gasket was failing. So does that not indicate that when the engine is fully up to temperature and everything is running, that the gasket is doing its job exactly as it should be? I think it is. I think the gasket is sealing just fine when the engine's running and when everything's up to temperature. I don't think the head gasket is the problem. I think the problem is all about what happens to the engine as and when it cools down. I have access to a Ford Oasis report, a report following an engine replacement that another owner had on their RS earlier this year. And on that report, they identified the fault and a problem as being distortion between the head and the block. So what I deduce from all of this, from the fact that when the engine's up to temperature and running, it's performing exactly as it should. MPG doesn't change, the power curves don't change. Everything seems to be just fine when it's up to temperature. But as it cools, and as the Ford report shows, distortion, head and cylinder block, the two major components of the engine that were redesigned and manufactured from a different material compared to the Mustang 2.3 EcoBoost engine, those two main components are cooling at different rates, and that cooling is introducing some distortion, and that distortion, as the engine cools, is unsealing the head gasket, which works just fine when the car's up to temperature. It's unsealing it and allowing coolant to leak into the cylinders, ready for the next time you start it up for you to get a misfire and it chug away and burn all that coolant off. Distortion, cylinder head and block, that's the problem. Quite a few people have said that a waterless coolant will solve the problem, that having a water-based coolant is causing some cavitation and some hot spots. Is that going to fix the issue? I'm not convinced that it will. Yeah, I'm sure it will have some benefits, but I don't think that's going to solve the problem. Will a redesigned head gasket solve the problem? Again, I'm not sure that it will. Both of those may well improve things in their own right, but the engine is still going to distort as it cools down. The head and the block cool at different rates. It's going to distort, it's going to allow some leakage of coolant into the cylinders. I can't see those really completely curing the problem. Why aren't they all failing then? Well, I think potentially they can and could all fail, and ultimately will fail, given enough full heat cycles and the engine going through that cool down from its ideal operating temperature enough times. I think pretty much every engine out there will suffer this problem. I can't see how it won't. It's a fundamental problem with the design of the engine, the materials used, and the design of the head and block. It's a fundamental problem that they distort as they cool down. Now, why aren't all cars failing? Well, I think a lot of them are owned by enthusiasts and do relatively short journeys and low miles. It takes my car 9 miles on my drive to work at least before I see my oil temperature reach its ideal, operating level. So if you've got a low mileage car and you don't regularly drive it for 9 or 10 miles, or give it some beans and get the temperatures up, it's not going through that full cool down process, and you won't be experiencing the distortion. But I think potentially every single car out there and every single RS could suffer from this problem. Maybe not in your hands if you're a low mileage owner, because you're not giving it enough full heat cycles. But I think there is a major fundamental problem with this engine. So there you have it. That's my theory on why the engines in the RS are failing. Now, I hope Ford have cured the problem. I hope they answer my question about what they've changed in my car so I can understand and accept that they've cured the problem. I'm not sure they have. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. But I hope they have, because right now, stuck in this, all I really want is my car back, and to know that it's fixed, and fixed for good. Now, I will of course be updating this as my car progresses through this process, and I will make sure I let everyone know if I hear anything. That's a big if, of course. So please hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on so you get the updates as and when I upload them. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please do give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, clearly, if you disagree, which I know quite a few people do. A lot of comments in the last one, quite entertaining, so do keep that up. And I'll see you all in my next video.